1 Samuel, also called 1 Kingdoms. Keeping in mind that this Bible study proceeds from an Eastern Orthodox Christian perspective, and the only way to fully understand the Old Testament is in light of the New Testament, the book of 1 Samuel opens with a story of Samuel's birth. Samuel's mother was Hannah, and his father was Elkanah. Hannah, at the beginning of 1 Samuel, is barren and childless. In the story, 1 Samuel 1 1-18, Hannah prays to God for a child. Eli, a priest of Shiloh and the last of the Israelite judges before the rule of kings in ancient Israel, is sitting at the foot of the doorpost in the sanctuary at Shiloh and sees Hannah apparently mumbling and thinks Hannah is drunk. Hannah explains that she was praying and, in her prayer, had promised that if the Lord were to let her have a child, the child would be dedicated to him. Eli blesses her after she promises the child to God, and subsequently Hannah becomes pregnant. Her child is called Samuel. True to her vow to God, 1 Samuel 1:11, after Samuel is weaned, she leaves him in the priest Eli's care when he was 3 years old. It is at the presentation of Samuel to the priest that Hannah worships the Lord with the song that biblical scholars entitle Hannah's Song, 1 Samuel 2 1-10. Unique to Samuel's birth, and not evident in other births until Jesus Christ, is the song extolling God's special intervention toward his people, and this is heard in both Hannah's song, 1 Samuel 2 1-10, and Mary, the Virgin Mary's Magnificat, Luke 1 46-55. Some biblical scholars have thought that Luke, or a scribe, made some mistake in ascribing the Magnificat to Mary rather than to her older cousin Elizabeth, whose situation more nearly mirrors that of Hannah, who was also a barren woman. But upon further investigation, although the Virgin Mary and Hannah have two different situations, there is continuity between the two songs in that the salvation of the community of Israel is the primary emphasis. The mindset of both of these women was not isolated to their personal situation. They both identified themselves with the Israelite community and the promise of the salvation of their people. From the very beginning at Mount Sinai, when God gathered the community of Israelites for the first assembly in the book of Exodus, the Israelites considered themselves in relationship to their community. All was accomplished for the community of Israel, God's chosen people. The community was an important part of the entire history of the Israelites. The scripture of both the Old and New Testament provides evidence that woman images are often used to represent various communities. For example, in Hannah's case, the priest Eli misunderstood Hannah's prayer while moving her lips as being drunk and thought she was a pagan Canaanite woman who was typically identified as daughters of corruption. When accused accordingly, Hannah defended herself to Eli, and the priest gives her his blessing. But she was identified initially, although in a negative way, with a community of people. Hannah's song is one of looking forward to the salvation of the Israelites. An identity between the Virgin Mary and the community of Israel is implicit in Luke 1:54 in Virgin Mary's Magnificat, as Mary comments clearly aligning herself with being the vessel through which God will save the community of Israel. Samuel is viewed by rabbinical literature as a Hebrew judge, a priest, and the first of the major prophets who began to prophesy inside the land of Israel. Politically, Samuel lived between two eras, the theocratic era, that is, the era of the judges, and the monarchy era, the era of the kings. The judges of the theocratic era were believed to have been appointed by God as representatives of Him to handle tribal or national situations, difficulties, and to act as military leaders in times of war. The judges were not elected by the people and they did not assume leadership through heredity. Samuel, being a priest, judge, and prophet, anointed the first two kings of the kingdom of Israel, Saul, 1 Samuel 10:1, and David, 1 Samuel 16:13.